You have been told your entire life that you are Homo sapiens, one species, a clean single line stretching back to the first humans. You assume your ancestors looked roughly like you, thought roughly like you, and belonged to the exact same species you belong to now. That is not what happened for most of the time modern humans have existed on this planet. We were not alone, there were other humans. Different species, walking the same continents, hunting the same animals, sleeping under the same sky, and here's the part that changes everything. We did not simply coexist with them. We had children with them in 2018. Scientists found the bone of a teenage girl who proves it. Not symbolically, not through some indirect calculation. They held in their hands the actual physical remains of a child whose mother was one species and whose father was another. Right now, inside your own cells, there's DNA from a species that is not Homo sapiens, sitting inside your chromosomes at this exact moment, doing things to your body you have never thought about. You're not what you think you are. In 2012, a Russian archaeologist working in a cave in the Altai Mountains of Siberia found a single fragment of bone. Smaller than a thumbnail, it sat in storage for years, one of thousands of unremarkable fragments pulled from that site. The cave was called Denisova Cave. It would eventually give its name to an entire species of human science had never known existed. In 2018, a geneticist named Viviane Slon at the Max Planck Institute decided to run DNA analysis on that specific fragment. She expected it would belong to one of the two human species already known to have lived in that cave, either a Neanderthal or a Denisovan. The results made no sense at first. Half of the girl's DNA matched Neanderthal genomes. The other half matched Denisovan genomes, not a blend built up over generations. A clean 50-50 split, the unmistakable signature of a first-generation hybrid. Her mother was a Neanderthal, her father was a Denisovan. Two entirely different species of human who met and had a daughter. Researchers nicknamed her Denny. She is the only direct first-generation hybrid between two ancient human species ever discovered. Published in the journal Nature in 2018, her existence proves something that had previously only been inferred from statistics buried in modern genomes. It proved that when different human species encountered each other, having children was not rare. It was not a strange exception. It happened often enough that eventually paleontologists got lucky enough to find the proof standing right in front of them. A single skeleton, one specific named real adolescent girl. Denny was not an isolated accident. She was evidence of something much larger as recently as 50,000 years ago, a blink of an eye in evolutionary terms. At least 4 or 5 different human species were alive on Earth at the same time. Homo sapiens in Africa and the Middle East. Neanderthals across Europe and Western Asia. The Denisovans in Siberia and parts of Asia. Homo floresiensis, a small-bodied human species discovered on the Indonesian island of Flores, standing barely over 3 feet tall. For decades, the working theory was simple. When Homo sapiens expanded across the world and encountered these other species, we either outcompeted them or were violent toward them. Either way, the story ended with extinction and replacement. Denny's discovery and the genetic data backing it up tells a different story. We did not simply replace them, we absorbed them. Here's where it stops being ancient history. The DNA from these other species is not sitting dormant inside surviving descendants, like a fossil. It is active. It is doing things to specific human bodies right now in 2026 that trace directly back to a species that has been extinct for 40,000 years. In 2014, researchers studying populations in Tibet identified a gene called ape-to-man. People carrying this gene variant can function efficiently at extremely high altitude. Air so thin, it causes severe altitude sickness in almost anyone else. Tibetan populations carry this variant at remarkably high rates. When researchers traced where the variant actually came from, the answer surprised even them. It did not evolve in Homo sapiens at all. It came from the Denisovans are not the only ones still shaping living bodies. Modern humans whose ancestry traces outside Africa carry, on average, between 1 and 2% Neanderthal DNA. More researchers have linked specific inherited variants to differences in immune response, pain sensitivity, and skin characteristics, functioning genetic code from a different species, still quietly running inside the people walking past you today. None of this is a metaphor for connection to the past. This is active genetic code inherited from beings who were not Homo sapiens, currently influencing how specific human bodies survive in specific places on Earth. So here's the uncomfortable question underneath all of this. If a single skeleton can prove a Neanderthal and a Denisovan had a daughter, and if that daughter's species crossing DNA is the reason whole populations can breathe at impossible altitudes today, what exactly does it mean to call yourself Homo sapiens? The category was never as clean as we wanted it to be. Modern taxonomy likes clean lines. One species, one box, one Latin name. But Denny's skeleton does not respect that line. Neither does the EPAS1 gene sitting inside Tibetan populations today. Neither, most likely, does your own genome. You're not a pure line stretching back to a single point of origin. You are the accumulated result of multiple human species meeting at the edges of their territories, choosing for reasons we will never fully know to build a life together instead of staying apart. Somewhere in Siberia, roughly 90,000 years ago, a Neanderthal woman and a Denisovan man met. We do not know what that meeting looked like. We do not know if there was a shared language between them, or just gesture, or just proximity across enough winters that something else took over. But we know they had a daughter, and we know because her bones survived in a cave long enough for a scientist to find one small fragment of her finger and run it through a sequencer that she existed, that she was real, that her parents were not the same kind of being, and she carried both of them inside her, the way you're carrying pieces of beings that were never quite like you either. You have spent your whole life thinking of yourself as one thing. Denny never had that luxury, and the more we learn, the more it looks like neither do you.